It's our community, and I'm always glad to see you. Come on in. I want you to meet our neighbor, Brian Gordon. And he's a cartoonist, and he writes funny. Do you think funny?
Yeah, I think so.
You do?
Yeah, a little bit.
Well, you better. Let's
Yeah,
put it
try.
yes. And the book he wrote is called Fowl Language, Fowl language, because it's ducks.
Yes.
So therefore, the title of the book. You know, people expect you to be funny. You can't be funny all the time.
I'm not.
Your wife says that's true.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's.
She said, he's funny? Oh, I
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I do what I can, but yeah, from day to day.
Well, we do our best.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It helps to be able to sit down and craft the jokes ahead of time rather than just trying to be funny on the fly.
That's right. So you constantly carry around a script.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Brian says that, and this is his word, these are his words, I decided in kindergarten that I wanted to be a cartoonist. My classmates had equally unrealistic life goals, like becoming superheroes or princesses, but he says I was more tenacious. So far, things are working out okay. This is like reading your diary.
Yes.
Secret to my success, I suck worse at everything else. You get a lot of drawing done when your plan B is starve to death. And my comics, he says, are largely inspired by my struggles as a parent, my fascination with technology, science, and all things geeky. So you're a funny geek.
Yeah. Well.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
And a constant, crushing wave of self-doubt and anxiety. That's a big source of inspiration, too.
Absolutely.
Are you anxious about?
Yes. Oh, sure.
I mean, I would be. This
yeah,
is a little
yeah,
hanging by a string type thing.
Yes, I'm an artist with 2 small children to feed. That'll keep you on your toes. So yeah, there's just I've always been kind of an anxious person, but
This exacerbates this.
yeah, exactly. So instead of but my little coping mechanism has always been kind of making jokes about the things that I'm so nervous about. So instead of just fretting and rocking back and forth,
Biting your fingernails.
yeah, exactly.
Yes.
I
Yes.
make jokes about them and draw ducks.
Well,
to
and this
illustrate
is
them.
the
Yes.
this is the product of the inspiration, and it is fowl language. And the duck is kind of how would you describe the personality of Father Duck?
Well, he's based on myself, so I would say he's kind of anxious and geeky and filled with anxiety and all those
And
things.
always looking for a cliff to jump off of
Yes,
because it
yes,
might be.
like so many parents. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a very autobiographical strip.
So you are Father Duck.
I am Father Duck.
I
Yes.
see.
And
Well, Mother Duck isn't in there. She must have said, no, there is no way I'm going to.
Mother Duck has made some appearances in there, but mostly I make fun of myself and, wisely, I direct most of the humor towards myself and not my wife. And,
You don't want to cause trouble
Exactly,
unnecessarily.
exactly. So I mostly just kind of, instead of poking fun of at her or anyone else's failings, it's usually just my own anxieties about what I'm doing to screw up my kids, or what my kids are doing to drive me nuts, or
That's
that
right.
sort of thing.
Well, and I think everybody who is not planning on, because they don't know what's about to strike them, but I think that every parent has this thought in mind, and Father Duck says, well, I used to be and do really cool things, and right now the kid is jumping all over him. So
Yes.
it's not really very cool.
No.
No.
No, it is. Parenting is many things, but it's not cool. Exactly.
Not every day, and not every day,
It's not the most
anyway.
glamorous profession.
But I would have to say that the Fowl language cartoons have about 350,000 Facebook fans, and you've been featured in the Huffington Post.
Mm-hmm.
So, you're big in Spain and Germany.
Yes, weirdly enough. Yeah, it's funny where there's a few countries, like, for whatever reason, in Germany, I have a strong, and New Zealand, Germany, Spain, there's like where you wouldn't think like that, you know,
And so you're
this sort of
afraid
thing
to
would
visit
translate.
because the crowds of admirers
Oh, sure,
would-
absolutely, like the Beatles getting off the plane. Yeah, but it is kind of strange that I'm happy that Germans seem to enjoy my work, but yeah, I'm as surprised as anyone else would be. So.
Well, yeah, you know, and you kind of fell into the book writing cartoons out of desperation, shall we say?
Yes. I was with Hallmark for 18 years, and then a year ago in June, I was sort of unceremoniously let go with so many other people when they had their latest round of layoffs. I had started this strip about a year or so prior to that, and it more is just like a side project, just something I'm like, oh, I'll do this for fun, see how
Just
that works
kind
out.
of doodling
Yeah,
on it.
exactly. I'm like, oh, this will be kind of fun to put out in the world. Who knows what it'll lead to? And so I got laid off, and I'm like, well, for lack of any other option, I'm like, well, guess I'll do this before I, go looking to, ditch digging or whatever my plan B would have been.
Changing light bulbs.
Exactly,
Yes.
exactly. And happily, it's kind of taken off for me. So it's been.
So we
very
could
fortunate.
term it a happy accident.
Yes, yeah. That's as good a description as any. I would
Okay.
suppose, so.
Well, let's look at some of these happy accidents that you have put in this book. And of course, this is the cover, and I really do like that. But you have got others in there. Let's look at
Yes,
another
one or
one.
two.
I have to tell you, folks, I picked the ones that I thought were the funniest. So now, a big ass SUV, anti-lock brakes, booster seat, got everything in it. And when you were a kid, no kid goes without a car seat and a seat belt and
yeah.
a head to keep his head from banging his brains around. And it is true, we didn't have seat belts, and the idea was to try and hold on to something when we go over the bumps,
Yes,
Lloyd.
the back seat, behind the back seat, there was a little shelf where the speakers
Yeah.
were, and that's where basically I was stored on any long car trip or in the back of trucks or where apparently back then people didn't worry about these things as
Try
much.
not to
but
hurt
yeah.
yourself too badly back there. Okay, let's look at another one. I just think, gee whiz, I'd love to go to McDonald's again, but they're closed on weekends. So, how long can you do this? They're not done for very long. You can't get away with that.
No, they're getting smarter by the day.
How old are your
unfortunately.
children?
They're 5 and 8. I have a 5-year-old daughter, Phoebe, and an 8-year-old son, Max. So.
And do they realize that they are the...
Yes,
Yes.
my son is a little bit more aware than my daughter. I mean, they both know that that Daddy draws a cartoon, and that's kind of
And
weird.
that they are the cartoons.
Yeah, and they know that they're the subject of
Yes.
it. And my son is actually aware enough to the point where we were at the playground not too long ago, and he did something ridiculous, and he fell on his butt and whatever, and it was just like, get up, and he's like, this is going to make it into the comic, isn't it? I'm like, well, maybe, we'll see. Well, so he knows that I'm kind of watching them constantly for material and what have you. My daughter just, she knows she's a pink duck and she likes pink, and so she's just a kindergartner coming up. So
Is the son funny?
Yeah, he is. He's a
Or
pretty,
just odd?
Yeah, he's like most 8-year-olds. He's just weird. And that's fine, and that's he cracks me up for sure. But it's mostly just his natural weirdness, like any 8-year-old. So.
Oh, well, and some 80-year-olds are
Yeah,
weird, too.
exactly.
If they never grow out of that.
Yeah, the weirdness.
Okay, let's look at another one. I enjoyed, actually,
Oh, good.
because I can relate. Well, champ, you look exhausted. Why don't you take a nap? Well, I don't want to take naps. Well, you what? Well, I just want... Who hates naps?
Yes.
Yes.
That is a constant struggle with my son. My daughter will actually take the occasional nap, but my son he will be dead tired, but it's just naps are boring. And why in the world would he ever want to take a nap? Because that's when he just stay up and be miserable and make everyone else miserable. So.
And then you think, maybe I ought to give him a drink of something so he'll get sleepy.
Yes, yeah. The thought has occurred to me.
Yes. Okay, let's look at another one. Your fear of three numbers, all of us have counted. This is a final warning. I'm going to count to three. And sometimes we say, well, I used to say, John, if you don't do this, I'm just going to mash you. And he knew that I was. But, I mean, really,
Yeah.
murder is another thought that sometimes, yes.
Yes, you get to all sorts of desperate places as a parent. Yeah, it's a sort of thing where luckily I've never gotten to three. So it's always like where I'm like, come on, brush your teeth, whatever it might be, and then I'm like, all right, one, and then they just like, he's counting, and like I have no contingency, like if I hit three, I don't know, four. That's why I'll just keep counting, I guess.
No
And
plan
like,
B there.
So luckily they haven't called my bluff on.
Well, the only
counting
time
me
you
at
came
three.
up with a plan B was when starvation was staring you in the face.
Yes,
so,
yeah.
So you're not a good plan B-er.
No, it's I lead her by just luck and serendipitous moments. So far so good. So hanging in there.
Okay, let's try another one. Your first child, and it's all true. Oh, he sneezed, and then he'd go to the doctor, and the second child, he says to his father, I think my leg fell off. And you say, as the father, well, hop over here and grab an ice pack.
Yes. Yeah, I think as a first-time parent, you're sure that if they roll over in a bad way, that they're just going to explode or die or their arms are going to fly off or whatever. And then you have them for a few years, and you have another one, and you're like, oh, they're pretty resilient or whatever. So it's like that was the sort of thing where my wife and I, like so many parents, anytime the kids got the sniffles, we're like straight to the ER, and then after a while, it's like, nah.
So everybody
fine,
refers to her as poor Phoebe?
Yeah, no, she's just fine. She'll walk it off. She's a tough kid. She's probably tougher than my son.
But nobody calls her poor Phoebe.
No.
I see.
She's,
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's try another one. Look at that. I can do whatever I want. And he has a martini in one hand and a popcorn or something. And then there he goes.
Yes,
That's a product of age as well, I think.
Yes, well, the years have been unkind. But yeah, that's the sort of thing where I'm always
Yeah,
like,
I thought that when I saw you said I'm 25.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I sleep outside, so I've done some really hard living in my 25 years. Yeah, that's the sort of thing where I always have the highest aspirations. I'm like, oh, once the kids go down, then I'm gonna clean the house and get some work done and whatever. And then they go down, and I almost immediately go down with them half the time, and then I wake up, and it takes all my strength just to stay awake when they're awake. So,
I don't know if we looked at them all or not. Do we have another one? There we did. That's the last one. I thought that was just wonderful because that was the way my mother treated me. Don't touch anything. And I was telling you, we used to go to the drinking fountain, and she would say, now don't put your mouth on that drinking fountain, you'll get trench mouth.
Yeah, exactly.
Trench mouth.
Yeah, it's the sort of thing where you try and teach kids to be, naturally curious and explore your world, and yet,
But don't touch
really,
anything
exactly.
dirty.
But when we go in here, it is time to stop exploring. Like this is a horrible, horrible, disgusting place, and everything will.
And then you get out the spray for the hands.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So yeah, we like so many parents. I have my little squeeze bottle of antibacterial in the car and such. So yeah, that gets used quite a bit. We'll come back from whatever disgusting place we're playing, and then I'm like, line up, kids. Like pump. I'm like, let's all de-germ you just a little bit. So, yeah. So.
And that's just the way life goes.
Yeah, absolutely. So.
Well, now you have a lot of Facebook people.
Yes,
do you
I
hear
do.
from them?
Yes, yeah.
Let's talk about some of the things they say to you.
Most people are very friendly, and they're for the most part. It's when I first started, there was more heckling, which is something the internet does. you know, because people want to let you know if they don't like you. So,
Well, what did they say to you? Were you ever afraid of anything like that?
and a lot of things I probably can't repeat
Oh,
here.
I see. Okay.
You know, it never any.
But you weren't afraid of it?
No. It never anything like that. I mean, people, you know, some people get.
Questioning your sanity?
Yeah, question my sanity, or they'll just, you know, I get some people who are like, "Don't you like your children?" And I'm like, yeah, I love my,
Most every
I
day.
live for my children, but they drive me nuts, and you know, it's a cartoon. So if I, you know, my cartoons were like, my kids are nice, I'm like, well,
That's not very
yeah,
interesting.
I'm like, well, it's like every other Facebook post. People are like, oh my, look how cute my kid is. Yeah, they are plenty cute, but they also drive me nuts, and that's more fun to joke
Well,
about.
but that's
yeah.
that's a segue into the art of cartooning,
Yes.
and that it appears to me is an overstatement or a light on something that you know may or may not be
Sure.
that big in your life, but that little piece is funny.
Yes. Yeah, trying to find the little ordinary moments that that people can relate to. That you know, these shared experiences that you know, it's like, oh, we all kind of deal with it, and then be able to take that and kind of like point out like the absurdity of these moments, or you know, just kind of like. I do a lot of contrasting, like you know, like the seatbelt one, where it's like, oh, we're all so worried about you know, like putting our kids in the you know, 98-point harness and whatever, and the airbags and everything else, and it's like, and you just take a moment and think back, like, gosh, you know, like I wrote it on the speakers in my parents' car, like that's like, it's kind of crazy, like you know, how did I live that you know to see this day, or just dissecting all the crazy
Well,
moments.
and I think sometimes you have to decide is if I should, heaven forbid, have an accident, is my child going to die of asphyxiation from the airbag in his face or cutting off the wind, being
Yeah.
choked to death with the seatbelt?
Yeah, so it's, you know, I'm definitely pro seatbelt, pro car seat, pro everything. But yeah, it does make you wonder how any of us lived, you know, to be this age, you know, with everything that can happen. And, you know, just as again, as a naturally anxious person, you know, it's sort of thing like, oh no, I want to do the harness and the stuff, but that you do take those moments where I'm like, oh, it used to not be this way. So from that is born cartoons. So,
Well, and as I'm sitting here talking to you, I'm thinking to myself, when my mother would have to come after me once in a while with a switch in her hand, and she would switch the back of my legs all the way down the street going
Sure.
home, I don't think she would do that today.
yeah, that's also changed a bit. You know, it's the sort of thing, you know, where you know, I find I have a cartoon where I say, you know, like I would never swear at my children, and I don't. But you know, I have been known to flip them off when they, you know, when they turn their back and they're like, you know, it's kind of, you know, the sort of thing like, you know, I just vent my frustrations in some sort of way. You know, it's like okay, and this, or I'll just, you know, vent to my friends, and that's how I see a lot of my. Another complaint that I've had for people is like, there's foul language in this, and I'm like, well, it's kind of in the title, where you know I write my cartoons in kind of the way I would speak to a friend, you know, or like, oh, my kid's driving me nuts, and he meets such a little so and so that's in the. That occasionally there is some actual foul language in the strip, and that's just kind of like, well, I'm just trying to. This is how I would talk to a close friend. So,
Well, and you know, you've provided me with another segue, and that's writing the cartoons. And
Yes.
literally, you do write the
Yes.
cartoon. So this is the way he starts out, and it's kind of a rough sketch.
Yeah.
Very rough. Now, do you think of the funny line first, or in what order do you do this?
yeah,
I mean, I have no
it
idea.
always the step actually before this is I have any number of sketchbooks which have very few actual sketches in them. They're more like journals where I'll just kind of write down germs of ideas, and I'll kind of like script the things out, and like, you know, I'm like, okay, how is it? How do kids act inside, outside, whatever? I might get the idea, and then I'll kind of plan out like, okay, in the first panel maybe it could say like, so it's just a lot of scribbled notes until it's like makes some sort of sense to me. And then from there, I'll go and I'll kind of doodle out kind of roughly what I want it to look like, which is what you see there. You know.
Well, and the important part, I mean, it seems to me the ducks are window dressing.
Yes. Yeah, it could be cats or squirrels or anything else, but, you know.
Yeah. Well, but they're the window dressing for the funny that you thought
Yes,
of.
you know, they're silly looking little creatures, so.
Well,
know,
and
it
you
doesn't
look at the
hurt.
duck and you smile, so you've got people lined up to do a giggle, you know.
Yes, well,
So-
you hope.
Well, let's hope so. I mean, you
Yes.
know, we have to plan on positive thinking.
Yes.
Okay, so this is the second iteration.
Yeah.
Now, when you look at this, do you have to laugh?
Well, it's the sort of thing where, you know, it's hard to be objective when you're working on it, but you know, you keep, you know, it's the classic where you kind of lean back and you look at it and like, is this funny? Is this or you know, it's hard to laugh at your own jokes, but you know, it's you look at it and you're like, okay, am I expressing this in a way that other people will find? So.
Or am I the only one that thinks
Yeah,
this
exactly.
is funny, which is a real problem.
Yeah, that's the gamble I play
Yeah,
every time
yeah.
I write a cartoon. Is like, is this going to make sense to anybody but me? And sometimes it doesn't. And
that's
but-
not good.
Yeah, exactly. That's just, you know, it's the sort of thing like when you show up to work. You know, some days you have good days, some days you have bad days. Unfortunately, my bad days are on the internet in front of hundreds of thousands of people. So you know, it's like, you know, it's a little bit more of a public bad day.
So it's
than-
like the king who had new clothes.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
There you are.
So if I'm having a rough day, or if I'm just like not feeling as funny as I should be, everybody sees it, and a lot of people will comment, or you know, it becomes really obvious.
It's
so,
worse than having a bad hair day.
Yes, it's like having a bad hair day in front of 500,000 people.
That's right.
So that's.
But you do notice that he has cleaned up the ducks in the second. They're a little. So he must have decided that this is a go.
Yes.
So the ducks are all cleaned up, and then this is what he starts coloring in.
Yeah, it's sort of thing where.
Got my finger over the yellow
Yeah, that's
ducky
okay.
there.
You know, I have like okay, I know Max, my 8-year-old, is the yellow duck, so I'm like, okay, you know what color yellow that duck. I know Phoebe is the pink duck, okay, and she's a certain color pink, and I'm the mallard, and you know, so I'll start laying out that.
You're the
and
big
then-
guy.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'll lay in the basic color. Okay, these are the colors of our ducks, and then from there, I'm like, okay, what color is the background going to be for these characters? And so then that leads me
To the fourth
actually
iteration.
like, and where are these people? And that's where I make the
And there they are.
yeah, that's where I decide what color the carpet and the walls and are they inside, are they outside, are they on pavement or grass or whatever. So that's all
Okay, well
just-
that leads me to ask you, how important is color in this thing?
It's, you know, color is something as an artist that I always feel like I struggle with. You know, it's the sort of thing that, you know, in a cartoon, unlike a lot of other art, the idea is to express your ideas quickly and as simply as you can. You don't want people getting lost in the drawing and just like, if you're trying to tell a joke, you know, it's like, if you're telling someone a joke, you don't want the joke to be overly long so somebody loses interest, you know, like, so you want to keep it as short and simple and direct as you can. So I try and keep the color so it's hopefully attractive.
But are there certain colors that attract people more than others that you're aware of, or you just pick
you know,
something you like?
For me, it's mostly just from the gut, you know, where I've been doing this for a couple of decades now. So, you know, when you first go to art school, there's a world of...
That's a really good for 25-year-old.
Oh, well, yeah, I know. I started young. But, you know, when you first go to art school, you know, there's all sorts of, you know, theoretical color theory and, you know, all this sort of like, you know, like learned from books kind of like, okay, and this is how the, you know, colors relate to one another. And then after a while, it just becomes like, you know, it's like learning English and speaking English. You know, it's like,
That's
you know,
right.
it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
now I just,
Yeah.
it's something I just do without really thinking about so much. And I just try and make it so, you know, it's just the classic, you know, kind of like stepping back and like, that red seems too dark or too bright or
Yeah.
too whatever, and until I get it to a
Yeah.
point where it just kind of serves the cartoon. So.
Well, and you said that there was no Hallmark and no income all of a sudden,
Yes.
and then you decided to draw ducks. Why ducks? It could have, and then you said there were some of your colleagues who thought those who draw ducks must be in some type of home rehab.
Yeah, one of my most frequently asked questions is why ducks? And
As they wonder now, is he safe to be around?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the second question. Is
Yes.
why ducks, and are you safe to be around? The ducks thing is it's kind of like the two major reasons. The first being that at Hallmark, drawing greeting cards, the four big animals that you draw are cats, dogs, bears, and bunnies are the ones. Like if you go to your local Hallmark or American Greetings card line, whatever, and you're like, okay, I'm going to buy a birthday card. If there's an animal on it, chances are it's going to be a dog, cat, a bear, or a bunny. Those are the big sellers for whatever reason. Those are the ones that kind of society has said, yes, those are cute, we're okay with those. And so over the course of my 18 years at Hallmark, I had drawn, a trillion of each. And so I was kind of worn out of drawing bears and such. So I'm like, I haven't drawn a lot of ducks. I'm like, that might be a fun thing to try and draw for a while. And so that was, like, okay, ducks. And so I was just doodling a lot of ducks. And then one day in my sketchbook, I drew a little duck and,
And you
this
said?
I had a little expletive above his head, and I captioned it, like foul language.
Yeah.
Ha ha ha. I pat myself on the back for making a silly pun. And then I'm like, maybe there's something to that. So
Well, there is, because you've been rather successful at crowdfunding.
yeah, well, that's how I support myself now. Is I have there's a thing called Patreon where I put it out there initially, where I'm like, if you want to, it's kind of people know a lot about like Kickstarter and things like that, where people are like, okay, I want to raise X many dollars to do whatever they're trying to do. Where with Patreon, it's a kind of an ongoing thing where I'm like, if you like what I do and you want to, if you'd like to see more, I'm like,
It's like standing with a tin cup.
yeah, it's basically begging on a global basis, and and asking people to, like, if you want to see more of these, like, I have to keep the lights on, and I can, if I get an income from this, I can make more. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to dig ditches or I don't know, go spend my time outside with a tin cup or something too. So there'll be less cartoons.
Well,
so.
but you know what you said? You said that your hope is that this little collection of cartoons will give a little comfort to any parent out there who feels a little frazzled at times. Hang in there, guys, he says. You're not alone.
Yeah.
And he is a cartoonist, and he does live on the edge.
Yes, I
And
do.
so he's hoping every day will be a fig funny day.
Yes. Wow.
And I have to say thank you so much, Brian Gordon.
pleasure.
And Fowl Language has given me a very pleasant look
Thank you
into
so much.
your geeky mind, should I
Sure.
say?
I'll
Okay.
take that.
So thank you for coming, and thank you for joining us as we've met a new neighbor, Brian Gordon. Thanks, Brian. Thank you.